Sudha Balagopalan, respected dignitaries, guests, delegates, and all the participants. A very warm good evening to one and all present here. I, Afnan Shihab, feel privileged to welcome you all to the 70th talk of the Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series, jointly organized by the IEEE Kerala section, the Institution of Engineers, Kerala State Centre, Computer Society of India, Trivandrum Chapter, Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter, Internet Society, Trivandrum Chapter, Vakkam Maulavi Foundation Trust, Trivandrum, Life Member Affinity Group, IEEE Kerala Section, IEEE Engineering in Medicine and Biology, Kerala Chapter, and the Institute of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. A common misunderstanding regarding game theory comes from the different connotations the word game has. An immediate connect with that game makes is to the structured play undertaken for enjoyment, and which is also sometimes used as an education tool. In recent times, the word game brings to mind a thriving industry, that is, computer games. Many of the repertoire being based on the art and science of game theory. One prominent example is the game of Hex, invented by John Nash, the Nobel Prize-winning game theorist. Though Nash suggested the optimal size for this board game as 14 by 14, so far, computer scientists have only been able to solve only up to a size of 9 cross 9. The challenge is still open. Today, on our 70th talk, we are extremely delighted to have with us Dr. Sudha Balagopalan, Dean Academics with the Academy of Science and Technology, to share their insights on game theory in everyday life. Before we begin, I'd like to bring your attention to the feedback form to which the link will be provided during the session. Those who require the link to the recording or participation certificate may indicate their requirements in the same. Participants may raise their queries in the chat box and they will be discussed at the end of the session. Kindly ensure that your microphones remain muted throughout the session. Moving on to the talk, I welcome Nandini of IEEE to welcome the virtual gathering.
Afnan, you can do that. You can do that duty, please. Afnan?
Yeah.
Please do the duty and go ahead. Welcome. Good evening to you all. Welcome to the 77th program. So the 78th program of the Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series, Game Theory in Everyday Life, by Professor Sudha Balagopal, PhD. He's a Dean Academics, Vidya Academy, Science and Technology. It's my honor to welcome all the participants of the program, all the office bearers of the Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series. Thank you once again. Welcome to the 78th program of Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series, Game Theory in Everyday Life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. May I start?
Go ahead.
I suppose I can start. Yeah.
Just a minute, ma'am. There is an
You'll have to
introduction
stop.
for you.
Yeah, you'll have to stop your screen sharing.
I now welcome Amrita Aravind to introduce the Honorable Speaker of the Day.
A very warm good evening to one and all present here. Today we have with us Dr. Sudha Balagopalan ma'am to deliver a keynote on the topic Game Theory in Everyday Life. Dr. Sudha Balagopalan, BSc Engineering Honours PhD programs in NIT Calicut, worked in BARC with a Baba Award on Purnima and Dhruva reactors, worked in several electrical projects in Kuwait, faculty member in GEC Thrissur and MES College of Engineering in Kuttipuram, consultant to a commercial complex at Guruvayur and a factory at Palakkad, with Vidya Academy of Science and Technology in different roles, senior lecturer, HOD, principal, and now as the Dean in Academics, setting up IEEE organizing 4 high-caliber IEEE conferences, EPSICon, hosting and implementing several IEEE activities, leading NBA associated works to and beyond, accreditation of 3 programs and reaccreditation, etc. are some of the contributions. A hearty welcome to you, ma'am, once again. Ma'am, you can take over the session now.
Thank you, Amrita. So I suppose I can start sharing the screen. Yeah. So this will stop your screen sharing, okay? Okay, so I start.
You can go ahead.
Yeah. So if I okay, share. Yeah. So okay, so let me thank all the organizers. But before, and also the Amrita for a beautiful introduction. But if I say that, okay, you should have, in fact, I feel more honored in this session for being introduced in such a manner, rather than when I was a recipient of the Nobel Prize. Okay, it would be something like a game. If the introducer then adds to the whole picture by saying that, okay, we had left it to the last, we wanted to say, we wanted to showcase your biggest achievement at the end, then that would also be an addition to the game because it would be a response. Now, if another participant has another axe to grind and that participant adds that, okay, do it, okay, so no, the introduction should have included that right at the beginning because not many people wait till the very end. That would be another addition to the game. What I mean to say is that we play games all our life. Okay, I suppose you understand the context behind all these statements because they are all interactions and they are responses to another person's statement. And before I proceed further, let me introduce to you the two stalwarts of game theory. On the left is, of course, John Forbes Nash. Both they are the real Nobel laureates. Okay, and on the left is John Forbes Nash, who said that, okay, that every game can be reduced to a competitive game. On the other hand, on the right side is the proponent of another school of game theory, wherein he says that any game, okay, so in fact, he opposes Nash by saying that it is Robert John Aumann who says that any game can be reduced to a cooperative game. So one person talks about one person heads the family of non-cooperative or competitive games, and the other person, that is Aumann, heads the family of what is called as, okay, in fact, they are the proponents. They highlight all the games in this arena. So Aumann says that all games can be what are called as cooperative games. Rather than these differences and the common factor in the sense that they both have the name John as a middle name for Aumann, as the first name for Nash. They went through, they are of course Nobel laureates. They have won most of the common prizes, and of course the Nobel came for them in economics for both of them. Of course, there's no prize in mathematics for, they are both mathematicians, and they are both affiliated to America, US. Okay? And moreover, they talk about they have won most of the prizes. Of course, von Neumann Prize, etc. in mathematics, of course. But then Nash won the Abel Prize as well. Another common point I would say is that Nash is the hero of a movie. I suppose most of you must have seen that, A Beautiful Mind. Okay, he is the hero therein, and he was afflicted by schizophrenia. So there's a very moving scene there, wherein in Princeton University, in a hall to which he was not admitted, or he was rejected from that hall. Therein he's presented with a pen by all great mathematicians who come to that hall. And similarly, Aumann escaped a program. Okay, he was a Jew in Germany, and just 2 weeks before before this particular program, as a part of a Holocaust, he escaped to US. So they are despite the fact that the mind, whatever is associated with the mind was most affected or afflicted as a result of the problems that they faced, both speak about rationality. In fact, Nash says that in a dream, it is typical not to be rational, whereas Aumann has many such quotes when he also says that, in fact, he spoke to me directly about wars being rational. So these people speak about the game theory being a part of the minds of people, wherein we make decisions on a rational basis. So that is exactly what is game theory. But at the same time, we have to go towards the main topic, wherein why is it associated with everyday life? Okay, so I have a few motivations. Like, for instance, I believe, okay, in fact, game theory is a part of cognitive science. Cognitive science talks about beliefs, okay, that are instilled in our minds by our parents, so much so that we develop attitudes where we say something like, okay, I am vegetarian, or vegetarianism is better, or like the Aryan Germans said that Jews are not human, like the whites spoke about the blacks, the Negroes in those times, that they are animals, that the blacks are animals, and some experiments were conducted on them. So this is a kind of attitude which develops as a result of certain beliefs that are instilled in the mind by parents. Moving on to slowly the stage when knowledge is acquired, and then we come to what is called as the adult kind of transactional analysis. This is a very important knowledge that the mentors, especially the teachers, need to have. So I suppose most of the people who are gathered here are mentors. So they must understand this basic tenet of psychology, wherein in any interaction, it could be the child which is talking. It could be an older person, but it must be the child in him. That is the beliefs that are instilled in him which must be talking, or it must be the attitude that the child has developed. Okay, so that the parent has instilled into the mind, that is coming out as a part of the interaction. It could also be the adult. So who are you talking to? Are you talking to the child within the person who is sitting in front of you, or is it the parent that you're addressing, or is it the adult within the child that you're addressing, within the student that you're addressing becomes an important part, or the mentee that you're addressing becomes an important part of the interaction, because that gives rise to what is called as another aspect of the transactional analysis, wherein the good strokes are supposed to be provided. Okay, and in economics, again, the game theory has an important role to play, because payoffs become very important, and payoffs is a very important terminology of game theory. Okay, and we are all associated, and we are all affected by economics, and the payoffs may be tangible, like physical benefits. It could be the money, it could be the land, etc. But it could also be good feelings. Okay, in fact, that's one thing that we can all share. That's one thing that we can all give others, which is good feeling. And that's the importance, that is one motivation for me for presenting this topic here as a part of everyday life. Moving on to a book perhaps some of you must have read by Dr. Eric Berne, which is Games People Play, wherein transaction analysis is talked about. Again, we indulge in games, or we play games, both as a part of being conflicted, or also as a part of cooperating with other people. Perhaps we'll get to know about that in the subsequent slides. Application areas are many. There is market, no doubt market, and any engineering, all disciplines of engineering, including market engineering and politics, no doubt about it. Politics also has a lot of games, game theory concepts which are being utilized in the political games. Okay? Moving on to hello. Yeah.
Microwave.
Hello. Am I not audible?
Yes.
Okay. Can I move on? Okay.
Yes, madam, you can go on. You are audible actually. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
so thank you. So I move on to another important motivation, which is of course social relevance. Game theory has a lot of social relevance, because social welfare, resource sharing, even tribal settlements, we can definitely have a role in designing the game, or modeling such issues and arriving at good solutions. Okay, so moving on to, so these are my motivations. And moreover, so let's go back to the earliest of philosophers, that is the earliest of modern philosophers, okay, which is Immanuel Kant, wherein he talks about a situation wherein there's a drought, okay, and this person who has bought a piece of land, okay, and even today we believe that everything under the earth that we have bought as also above the earth belongs to us. So he is evaluating, or he is making a decision as to whether he should, during the times of drought, whether he should water his garden or he should conserve water. He sees, okay, in fact, he feels that he should water the garden, because if everybody is restraining, okay, if everyone is exercising restraint, there's no point in him also exercising restraint, which is some argument that we teachers always get to hear. Okay? There's another argument also that students, as also this person is putting up, where he says that if everyone is restraining, okay, and if nobody is restraining, why should I restrain? Okay, so these are the two arguments that he puts forward in favor of watering his gardening, because the well belongs to him. So he feels that the water, all the water in the well belongs to him, and so he need not exercise restraint. But Immanuel Kant's fundamental principle of morality states that act only on such a maxim through which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Okay, so this is actually a strategy that is employed in the arena of game theory, wherein even game theorists suggest the same thing, and Kant also suggests the same thing, saying that choose only a strategy which, if you will it to be chosen by all the players, would yield a better outcome from your point of view than any other. Okay, so this is how strategies are chosen. Let me hope that I'll be able to present that and explain that better in the subsequent slides. Okay, so moving on to the person who actually brought game theory to the public arena, that is the celebrated mathematician von Neumann, John von Neumann, who actually developed the first solution, where he developed what is called as the min-max, minimization and maximization, put together as a concept to solve strategic normal games. Okay, what are normal games? We'll soon realize. Okay, and he also published a paper, so, based on all the studies that he had done. He published a paper he published a book in 1944 on game theory, though he understood, and in fact the book along with Oscar Morgenstern. Okay, so though the book talks about its application, the application of game theory to psychology, as I said earlier, sociology, which also I spoke about, politics, again, warfare, recreational games, and many other fields, he was more interested in the game of Kriegspiel, which is more or less like a chess game, because he was interested in the military situation that was building up at that point of time, the Second World War. Okay? And so moving on to the subsequent happenings or the landmarks in game theory, starting from 1950, when Nash introduced another kind of solution, which is Nash equilibrium, and then all these people, 50, 61, 65, 68. Okay, so most of these people are very famous in the area of game theory, and all of them are mathematicians. Okay, and all of them have contributed to mostly economics and psychology. Okay? So of course, I have talked about, and Schmiede happened to be a student of von Neumann. Okay, so moving on to see about these landmarks, we can also see that, okay, I'm talking about the significance. We can also see that there are enough and more. Okay? There are plenty of, in fact, plenty of Nobel prizes have gone to game theory. Okay, so I've picked up a few only here, and even in recent times, in 2012, Lloyd S. Shapley, who surprised von Neumann, won a Nobel Prize along with Roth. In fact, most of them have had partners, okay, or people who have contributed to game theory in different years. Okay, so I've picked up only a few, but still over the years, okay, even in 2009, there was a lady, Elena. Okay, so we have had Nobel Prizes going to game theory oriented solutions to any important economics problem. Okay, even in recent times, in 2020, both the Nobel laureates had contributed to auction theory, another part of game theory, wherein again game theory concepts won a Nobel Prize in economics. Okay, mathematicians again. So moving on to, so this is how, and over and above, we can see that there are several journals. Okay, in fact, there are several books and journals published in the area of game theory. In fact, the journal Games and Economic Behavior, Elsevier publication, happens to carry the same name as the book that was written by the first of the proponents of game theory, which is John von Neumann. Okay. Anyway, moving on. So there are plenty of journals. In fact, most of my journal papers, I am not a very profound researcher. The humble research that I have done, where I have always used, in fact, I have used game theory. Even the last paper that I wrote, which was selected in a conference just prior to COVID, again was based on game theory. Okay, anyway, so my another motivation, which I did not speak about, is of course the fact that I've always felt that game theory can be a very important tool that we can utilize, a platform that we can use for modeling and also for finding solution for tribal settlement, because tribal settlement is again a set of marginalized people, and tribals happen to be marginalized people, and the settlement never comes to a logical conclusion. So if anybody is interested, I would be very much interested to co-author a paper wherein we can study this particular social situation that perhaps we can together try to address. Okay, moving on to the significance of game theory in everyday life. It of course, children play, students play. Children, as they progress to students, they play the game. They play the games that even adults play. Like for instance, when children want to get something. In fact, I remember in my childhood, we had different players like the mother, the father, the siblings, and me. So together we would we would play games to get something, to hide something, okay, and of course to trick friends. Game theory is used in our everyday life. When students become older, okay, they want to shirk work as also exams, play mischief, etc. I hope all of you must have read that real story as it is explained in WhatsApp, wherein 4 students went 4 IIT students is what is mentioned there. They went to town. They went to their town and to paint it red, and they became very late. And then they remembered that they had an exam on the subsequent day, and so they went to the professor. They had a plan, so they went to the professor all disheveled, and then they told the professor that we could not study because we had to go to town for a very important business, and then the tire of the car burst, and so now we have to we could not study anything. Please give us another chance. And so the professor agrees, and he agrees on a later date. And when the students come for the exam all prepared, he makes them seated. He gives them seats at four corners of a room, and then he gives them only one question. I suppose you must have guessed the question: which tire burst? Okay, so this was the question given to them, and I suppose this is a very good. What should I say? It is a story which actually talks about game theory. Okay. Moving on to here, of course, as a teacher, as also a principal, I have experienced quite a large number of problems when students indulge in indisciplinary as also criminal activities. Like, okay, of course, criminal activities are lesser, but campus fights are there, ragging can occur, cyber issues come up, okay, because in these times cyber issues come up, and then when we try to collect evidences, then students start playing games. Okay, they play cooperative games, they also play what are called as non-cooperative, or they play what they defect, they also cooperate. Okay, so we have problems to filter out the correct kind of evidences to make a case. As adults, we indulge in several games like voting, auction, signaling. Okay, some of them are explained further. Property division, when we have a huge property and the heirs decide to divide the property. Resource sharing, tribal settlement, as I said earlier. Course allocation amongst teachers, which is the course that I want and which is the course that I'll be allocated. All these are important areas where games can be played or game theory can be utilized, okay, in a better manner. Okay, investment plans, etc. And then for quoting for projects, applying for jobs, in affairs of the heart, delay in projects, how to fix accountability. In fact, there are research papers in all these aspects. Embezzlements, as is happening right now, monsoon, Maungal, etc., duping, okay, then again war. In all these areas, there is significance of game theory in our everyday life, because all these form a part of our life. Okay, there's no, in fact, war is also a part of our life. There's no doubt about that. Okay. So anyway, let's see some games, okay, and some elements of game theory. Okay, so I move on to the first. This is the game that I try to explain to everyone. In fact, I have tried to explain game theory to Mohandas sir also. So this is because people don't understand. Okay, of course, it's not him. But when I talk to the youngsters, they don't understand. They say that the game theory is tough. Yeah, but I don't think so, because I use this example. Okay, let's talk about a pair of two boys. They are siblings. They want to share a cake. Okay, in these days, perhaps a cake is nothing, but they want to share a cake. So they are the players, and they have their own real needs or strategies. Like, for instance, they might like the corner pieces because it has more icing. They may want a bigger piece. It may also be that they want some, there are some floral patterns or something like that. They want that particular portion, etc. So there might be some, they have some payoffs. They want them. Okay. But of course, it has to have what is called as a rule of the game. The rule of the game happens to be that one boy will cut the cake. Okay. And the other boy will choose first. So this is the rule of the game. And so now the boy who is cutting the cake will bring all innovations and every strategy that he knows and all technology that he can muster to cut the cake appropriately, such that his requirement or his end is such that the other boy does not get what he also wants. Okay, but of course, this boy who is choosing his cake, he also has technology at his disposal. He also has strategies to choose. He can also dupe the other boy and see to it that he gets what he wants. Okay, so this is one aspect which actually explains game theory in a particular manner, wherein there are players, there are what are called as rules of games, there are strategies, and from the strategies they opt for a certain strategy, and based on the strategy what happens is that there is an outcome. Okay, the outcome is dependent on both, and finally there is what is called as a payoff. They get something, okay, out of the whole exercise of perhaps, okay, so this is exactly what I said. Okay, game theory deals with strategic interaction of players. So so now they are interacting in a strategic manner. Okay, so it is and the game theory is mostly this kind of modeling is mostly applicable to complex, conflict-ridden. When there's a conflict, the conflict between the boys when they want the same thing. Okay, so there's a conflict when the conflict-ridden situations like war, business, etc. Okay, so there are players. Sometimes they are called as agents. There might be two or more. Okay, and it need not be humans. It need not always be humans. Okay, there will be a set of rules for the game, and there will be choices exercised, and these choices are exercised as a part of the strategic options that there's a set of strategic options available, of which they use a particular option such that they have a particular outcome, because the other person responds to that particular choice. Okay, so there are two types of, essentially, as I said right at the beginning, there are cooperative games and there are competitive games. Okay, so let me go to two very famous competitive games. One is, of course, the game of chess. The game of chess is the best example of a competitive game, wherein it's a sequential game. If the white the player with white has moved a piece, then this is Humpy. Okay, Humpy will respond accordingly based on all the options available. She will make a strategic move. Okay, so this is what is called as a zero-sum game, because if Humpy wins, she has won, and she has a point number 1, a score of 1, whereas her opponent will have a score of, okay, you can say that the opponent has lost, so it is equated to -1, so 1 plus -1 is equal to 0. Okay, so this is a game which is said to have complete information, because both of them know what are the different moves that the other person can make. They also know that at any point of time what the other person has played, because in fact it's also written down, but these celebrated players always know that how the game has progressed from any point of time, because that is what is called as a perfect game. I'll give a better explanation later on. Now this is another very famous game which is called as a prisoner's dilemma on the other side. Okay, so we have two prisoners who are two persons who have who are supposed to have done what is called as a bank robbery, and now they have been caught, and they are now imprisoned in two separate cells such that they cannot interact with each other, and now they will be given sentences based on how they respond to the interrogation. Okay, so they are interrogated separately. That these are the rules of the game, that interrogate them separately. So now they are thinking between themselves. They are thinking separately that perhaps the other man will confess. So what should I do? It could also be it could be also be a possibility that the other man will not he will remain silent. Okay, in that case, what should be my options? Okay, so these options are shown in the next slide. Okay, so we move on to the next slide, wherein now we have these are the different these are the strategies. Being if both confess, now the crime is pinned onto them, so they get 5 years of imprisonment each. Okay, if they both remain silent, okay, then what happens is that they cannot prove the crime, and so what happens is that they will remain in the cell. Okay, and they will remain in detention for about a year. Okay. And if on the other hand, if A confesses, okay, if A confesses, then what is possible is that he will be let off. Okay, we say that he is a witness, or he's a Mapusakshi in Malayalam, and the other man gets 20 years. That's the reason why they are considering separately what should be the strategy that they should employ, and vice versa in the case when B confesses and A remains silent. Okay? So the game is now expressed in what is called as a normal form. Okay? This is the normal form wherein when both A and when both cooperate, that is A. So cooperation is considered to be remaining silent. They are cooperating with respect to each other. But if they are cooperating with the interrogator, then it becomes they don't remain silent, they confess. Okay, so then he becomes the third player. The interrogator or the policeman becomes the third player. Okay? So we move on to a situation wherein both the players. Okay, so this is how it is shown here. When both of them remain silent, or when they cooperate with respect to each other, then the punishment is that the payoff is 1 each. When they both defect or they rat on the other person, then what happens is that the crime is now established, and they get 5 years each. Okay. On the other hand, if one happens to confess and the other doesn't, then the man who does not confess becomes a victim of this. Okay, so this is the normal form. The same problem can be modeled in what is called as the extensive form, wherein the similar situation is given here. Okay, so this is what is called as a matrix form or a normal form. This is the extensive form. Okay. I hope some clarity is there. Okay, now we have what is called as a cooperative game. Okay, so I suppose even in our childhood, we might have noticed that there will be, of course, when children get together, even when cousins get together, there will be a leader who will want to play a particular game. Okay, but then of course there will be always a rebel. There will always be a rebel. Okay, when there are 3 persons, there might be a rebel. The rebel wants to play something else. Okay, so now this person will try to induce or attract another player into his team by giving him some promises, okay, like saying that you will be given the first chance to bat or something like that, okay, and but the rebel who wants to play another game will also try to bring in cooperation from other people. Okay, so similar, so slowly they build their coalitions, and sometimes it is possible that they all join together. Then you have what is called as a grand coalition. Okay, so perhaps the whatever is going to be shared with the others as benefits as a result of coming together may be more may be so attractive that we have what is called as a grand coalition. Okay, so this is what is called this gives you the elements of a cooperative game theory. Okay, so here also we can see that we normally enlist cooperation. And let's say that we are having an annual meeting. It could be in a building cooperation. In fact, these are some of the things that we experience in life. Okay, like for instance, we are having a meeting. Nobody likes long meetings, but then this man who has stood up, he's enlisting cooperation. How does he say that? He says that, okay, I have some more complaining to do. Okay? So when you are having somebody who wants to complain something, there are more people joining, because in any situation, in any place where we come together, there will be some people who have more complaining to do. In this manner, he is trying to gain some coalitions such that whatever is the plan of the management, let me say that the management is actually okay, is not work, it will not work out. Okay, this is another cartoon strip again. How cooperation is enlisted can be seen, or what is the benefit that is being shared such that people join you is very important in cooperative games. So now this lady actually wanted to have a neighborhood crime patrol, but nobody was joining. But when she said that the bingo money is being protected, okay, then the entire, because all of them feel that the bingo money is going to come to them, so they all come together in the protection group. Though the same thing was required as a neighborhood crime patrol, they now join what is called as the bingo money protection squad. Okay, so this is the just methods of showing cooperation, but this is a serious business. Okay, so this is here we have what is called as several issues wherein river water sharing becomes a prominent problem. Okay, it becomes a political problem. Like, for instance, River Teesta, which is the 4th largest among 54 rivers shared both by India and Bangladesh. It is used for fishing, drinking, domestic use, irrigation, then again industry and religious activities. It has its origin in Sikkim. Okay, the place is called as Tsolamo. It has its origin in Sikkim, and there is a dam, and Sikkim has built a dam there. It flows through the borders of West Bengal and Sikkim, and their sand mining is being used in a place. Jalgaon, I think they are using what is called as they are using the sand from, they're mining sand from the river. When it goes to Bangladesh, just an example is being shown here where it's being used for farming. Is now how this problem or this issue can be resolved appropriately is one way, has definitely a solution in modeling using game theory, in cooperative game theory, and using its solution methods for resolving. So what I tried to say is that cooperative game theory is always a sequential game because it gives room for negotiation. I make a move, then people approach me for negotiation, and then perhaps we come to a conclusion wherein we both have some benefits out of coming together to pose another situation. Okay, so and this goes on until perhaps we can have grand coalitions, or we can have several coalitions. Okay, so players form coalitions, and ultimately they may join the grand coalition. So there are common interests. So these common interests are what bond people together in coalitions. And these and whatever, if you put it in a mathematical manner, you call it as a characteristic function. Okay, and yeah. So and ultimately it is the benefit. Okay, that if the whole is bigger than the parts, then the difference between the whole and the parts can be now shared. This is exactly the concept of benefit sharing. Okay, but of course there is a possibility, there's the risk that there might be last minute defections. Okay, so there must be some methods for addressing that also. How to not form, how to see to it that people remain in the coalition till the very end. Okay. So okay, I suppose I've spoken about both the types of game theory. Now the players are there in both, and so let me talk about the players. They are not always, they need not be human beings. So this is one game that children play, wherein they present a fist, which is a rock, or they present a paper, or they present some fingers like scissors, and if both present the same, they get 0 points, but they get points differently, and then they total up the points. Okay, and this shows actually why they get minus or 1 or plus 1. Okay, so this is again game, two very celebrated games which talk about 2 move mates and 3 move mates. Okay. So moving on to this particular game, which is now in an advanced fashion, where we are having rock. Okay, this is called as, we have the child, okay, who can vaporize the rock. Okay, the child can vaporize the rock, which can crush the scissors, which can cut the paper, okay, which can disprove the child, okay, and who can smash the scissors, okay. Yeah, so I suppose I should go like this. The child can smash the scissors can cut the paper can cover the rock can crush the lizard can poison the child, where the child can vaporize the rock. See, it's always two-way. The rock can crush the scissors, and then the scissors can decapacitate the lizard. The lizard can eat the paper, and this paper can disprove Dr. Spock, which is what such children were called, who used to give who used to give medicines for in the earlier times. Okay, so both matrix forms as also extensive forms are possible. Okay. So moving on to this is a very important another game wherein again the players are interacting. Now, so from players we come to the interaction. So he is taking his penalty kick. He can kick to the left, to the right, or he can kick to the middle. And to the top, to the bottom, or to the middle. So there are several options that he has. The goalie has also several options. He can move to the left, he can move to the right, or he can remain in the center. He can jump up, or he can crouch down. Okay, so all these are possible, and the outcome will depend upon the strategies that are taken by both the players. Okay, so the so the outcome is influenced by the actions of all the players. Like for instance, if the goalie moves to the left and the player kicks to the right, then of course he scores. And so this the probabilities that are shown, especially because probability also comes to the picture, because if the kicker happens to be a right hand kicker, then you have what is called as the higher probability for scoring. Okay, even if the goalie has gone to the right. Okay, and the penalty shootout happens also to be the right. Okay, and this is the difference between the other kinds of optimization. Here the reaction is against the response of another person, so it happens to be what is called as a live variable. You can't call it as a dead variable, and this is another important component or particularity or property of game theory. Okay? So again, another more strategies are here, where again voting, they are called constant sum because 60% support and 40% don't no, so 60% of perhaps the red party and 40% of the red party also support, so it gets 100% score. Sometimes you have what is called as 20% supporting and 80% opposing. Okay, then you are having the difference between them as the okay, of course the total is constant, and sometimes people some of the assembly members or the parliament members may evade the issue altogether. Then you may have such a strategy choices. Okay, so this is again how the different strategies that are put together, and you can see that there's a constant sum associated with the number of votes that are put in. Okay, of course the victory depends upon the difference between the two. Okay, so this is again another strategy choice that the general has, where he knows that he can have what is called as if the enemy is taking to the forest, then he can smoke them out, and he has other options also. But on the other hand, if the enemy is headed towards the hills, then he can cut them off, or he has other strategies also. But then he says that the problem that he has is that he doesn't know where the enemy is. This is exactly the problem associated with many problems in game theory, in the sense that there is what is called as information deficiency. Okay, so here again we are talking about such a situation that decision making happens to be tough, especially because there's no certainty for the result. Okay, there is a possibility that there is no certainty, that is far from certainty and far from agreement between the players. Okay, so this shows you a context of how where the game theory aspects come into the picture. When both when there is absolute certainty and when there is full agreement, then of course the situation is simple, and you get what is called as best practices and standards, because there are standards people are in agreement, okay, and that's the rational part of it. But then things become complicated as you move further and further away from certainty, as also from agreement between the players, okay, and then you reach what is called as the complex situation, wherein the game theory definitely has a role to play, because you have what are called as emergent practices or innovations, and these happen to be in the game theory context, okay. Of course, towards the when there is no agreement and there is no certainty, then you have a situation of chaos. So decision making is always affected by the number of alternatives that you have. If you have too many alternatives, there is a problem. If there is uncertainty, as was mentioned earlier, there's a problem. If there are if there are high risk consequences, there's a problem. Then if there are interpersonal issues, we can see that most of the problems arise as a result of the players having interpersonal issues. And of course, there's a complexity in the entire problem. In all these aspects, the issue happens to be that there is what is called as a information asymmetry. Okay, information asymmetry. Sorry. Yeah, I think I should. Yeah. I suppose, yeah, let me talk about the complexity first. Okay, so when you are having a complex situation, as is seen in one of the earlier problems that we had, when there was what is called as the Cold War going on between USA and USSR, there were missiles targeting US, a raid in Cuba, and the whole problem was called as Cuban Missile Crisis, which is now played out as a game theory problem in several in all the game theory schools that we have. Okay, so here we have two actions that USA can take. One is, of course, give blockade, which is a tame issue. Otherwise, go for airstrike. Okay, so USSR again has two options. One is to withdraw the missiles, or to maintain them. Okay, so if the blockade is only blockade is practiced by USA and USSR withdraws, then we have what is called as the status quo coming into picture, and so we are having equal points for both. On the other hand, if USSR plans to maintain the missiles, then of course we say that USSR has won the game, because they have not moved back from their decision. Then so that's the point. Of course, doomsday is approaching. Similarly, if US say announces airstrike, and then if USSR withdraws, then the points go in favor of USA, because because USSR has gone back. But on the other hand, if USSR still maintains, then that's the end of the game, because you are going to have what is called as nuclear war. Okay, so and a similar situation. This is what is called as a situation which is explained as a game of chicken. Like, for instance, when two cars are, they are all very famous games, okay, in the game theory context. So the cars are rushing towards each other, and they are saying that, okay, and if both of them do not take a diversion, then the end is near for both. Okay, and one person has already signaled that he has removed his steering wheel, so he is not going to divert at all. So he wants the point. Just like perhaps USSR or USA wants the point. Now the decision is going to be of the yellow car driver. Okay, and now here the red car has made another decision. He has taken out a newspaper, and he is signaling to the other guy that he has all the time in his world, and so he is ready for, okay, so time is approaching, so he is ready for negotiation, and he can wait, and the other man can take the road. Okay, so these are games similar to what was mentioned earlier, very complex situations which actually were averted at the last moment in Cuba. So yeah, as I said earlier, information asymmetry is a similar problem. And here we have this man talking about a single coupe that is left, which is parked right in front, but he's fingering the small car here, and he's saying that for an advance. Okay, so now this is duping. This could be duping, where he says that with a small advance payment, the whole coupe is his. Okay, and this is something that we all experience when we buy oranges, but here lemons are shown. This is again a game of when the buyer when the buyer is deficient in information, but the seller has a surplus of information, he knows what is raw, which is going to rot first, and he sells accordingly. So similarly for cars, etc., second-hand cars, etc., because they drive out good, but then because the buyer cannot distinguish. Okay, but of course it has what is called as, this is what is called as economic cost of dishonesty. Okay. So moving on, so these are all, okay, these are all games. And here also again, there's another conflict situation wherein, okay, again, just conflict, cartoon strips wherein conflict resolution is not possible because that meeting has to be cancelled because they could not come to a agreement regarding the venue. Okay, here again, we are having what is called as the general talking to his military wife, where he said that, okay, when I said that nuke the Chinese, I did not mean to set out the war details. What I wanted was just to heed the takeaway that in the microwave. Okay, so using the microwave is also called as nuking, and Chinese is of course the takeaway that he was talking about. Okay, so there is what is called as a conflict of understanding, and here this we experience all the while. She says that the tune in my head keeps interfering with the song in my heart. I suppose when we listen to a particular song, it's not easy to think about another song because this what we hear with the ears interferes with whatever we think in our mind. Okay, so these are just conflict situations that I wanted to talk about. And moving on to introducing the cooperative versus competitive games. Okay, so here again we have his brother-in-law working here, and he is actually good for nothing, but of course to keep family peace he has agreed for his brother-in-law to assist him. But now his assistant is very smart. He's advising him. He's saying that we'll put out a rumor that your brother-in-law knows all the trade secrets, and so the competition will steal him away from us. Okay, so these are actually all these cartoon strips that I've chosen. I've taken from game theory context to show the importance of how competition, how players play in the competitive games, okay, when they're purely competitive, okay, so to gain their objectives. Similarly, non-competitive game theory is more focused on, that is competitive game theory is more focused on what are the different strategies that they have, what they will play, and what are the payoffs, and what is going to be they are all simultaneous games. Okay? Unlike the cooperative games, which are sequential, which mostly focus on how the player should be rewarded as a result of coming into the coalitions. Okay, so moving on to some of the, okay, so again cooperative, okay, so just a cartoon on cooperative game theory. This man says that, okay, so let's all come into a coalition, let's all cooperate. Okay, so you should put aside all your selfish individual objectives and individual interests, and let's start doing things my own way. Okay, so he wants everyone to join his coalition because he wants his own objectives to hold the sway. Okay. So some non-cooperative examples. Okay, so as I said, tried to say earlier, economics game affect us all. Like for instance, advertisements. If both advertise, they don't gain anything. If someone advertises and the other one does not advertise, then what happens is that the person who advertises becomes known, but and so he gains a lot of business, whereas the other one does not. Okay, but of course he suffers. If both advertise, then they both lose. Okay, because they have to advertise. Okay, so that's that. So and so we should not go into the advertising game. And others, of course, the cartel game, wherein you have a monopoly price, like for Pepsi, and so these are of course played out games. Okay, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they decide. Okay, no, I didn't make a mistake. Okay. So now the Coca-Cola decides if the Coca-Cola company goes for a lower price rather than the cartel price or the monopoly price, they gain more. Okay, they gain $3 million as against $2 million. Whereas Pepsi, if Pepsi gains $8 million if it goes for a low price, and it goes for on the other hand, it gains only $6 million if it goes to the monopoly price. Okay, so definitely now the best strategy is always to avoid the cartel or to give a bypass to the laws. Okay, similarly, trade wars between countries again have a lot of game theory content within. If Japan, okay, so this is with respect to television. If Japan goes for decides to go for if both parties, Japan and US, go for tariff, then they have what is called as they gain $5 each per television perhaps, and on the other hand, if they don't go for tariff, okay, uniform tariff, then they gain more. Okay, so it goes in favor of the strategies always go in favor of not abiding by the laws. Okay, unfortunately. Okay, so anyway, even for some chain stores, like for instance in the same road, in fact even we've experienced the same thing. There was already a sari business out there, and then when another business started to come there, then the incumbent company decides either to fight it. Okay, of course there are several ways of fighting. If they fight, then the entrant again decides. So both are decide. So the incumbent decides to fight, and the new entrant decides to enter. Then the new entrant loses out, but the fighter gains only 10. On the other hand, if the fighter decides, okay, if the incumbent decides to give in, okay, let the small fish also to live, then they gain more. Okay, but on the other hand, if the new entrant decides to stay out and not enter the market, then he of course gets nothing, whereas there's a monopoly for the other person. Okay? So these are some of the economic games that affect us all. We get low prices or we get high prices based on how they play their games. Okay, this again a transportation delay. I'll rush through it because it takes a little time to explain it, and I think we are running out of time. Here, of course, we always choose the fastest route to travel, and since this route takes a longer time, we opt for this. But on the other hand, if there are more cars, then each of them become players, because these players decide on the congestion that will be there in the fast routes also. So you have delays based on the traffic, and so the game is played out here. What are the different strategies available? It is called as the traffic assignment game, and there is an equilibrium similar to Nash equilibrium, which is called as a Wardrop equilibrium, which says that the best option is to see to it that half the people are routed along one direction and half the people are routed along the other direction. Then the delay is only 1.5. Otherwise, they take a delay of 2, including the fact that then you are having what is called as a bypass built in between, because everyone decides to take the bypass, and the same similar problem comes, and the delay is again 2 time units. And this is what is called as the Braisk paradox. Okay, where the bypass does not serve its purpose. Okay, so these again affect our lives. Again, teachers are very interested in taking certain courses in a particular slot, so that we have what are called as tough slots, tough courses, medium level courses, as also boring courses, and there are different popular slots, perhaps unpopular slots, and medium level slots. And if 2 teachers are planning to take classes the same subject in 2 different classes, then they make a decision with respect to what slot to use, which course to. Okay. Have I a problem? Which course to offer, which course that they offer simultaneously in both the divisions, and which slot to opt for. So perhaps these are the options that are given. These are the values that each teacher has for a course in relation to a slot. And the first figure talks about the player 1, teacher 1, and the player 2 has a value which is given as second here, and how the decision is brought to, or which is the winning strategy, is seen by player 1 talking about taking a tough subject, and then then the teacher notices that player 2 is opting for strategy 2, that is slot 2. Okay, because that gives so when tough is opted by player 1, player 2 has 3, 11, or 5, of which 11 is maximum. So she marks out 2 here. And then for when the teacher 1 opts for medium course, she sees that teacher 2 will opt for slot 1, so M1. And then for a boring course, teachers that it is top, middle, and bottom. But of course, I've named it differently. For boring course, teacher 1 notices that teacher 2 will opt for slot 1. Okay. And similarly, player 2 will also do a similar work, wherein player 2 sees that for slot 1, teacher 1 has the best option at middle, for middle level course, and then for slot 2, boring course, and for slot 3, the tough course. And here we see that this is matching with respect to each other. So this is what is called as Nash equilibrium, and this is how the winning strategy is selected. So we have slowly moved into solutions. Okay. So similarly, there's another way of coming to the Nash equilibrium. Again, I have played a particular game here. Again, property division, wherein when a big household is deciding upon what is called as division of property, there might be there will be mobile property like vessels, big vessels, furniture, as also jewelry, family jewelry, etc. Or so a jewelry that is the belonging of the entire family. So then when you make a division, then again there are values accorded by group 1. Group 1 here. So for F is for vessel, E is for furniture, D is for jewelry, and so now they evaluate each other simultaneously. So it is notable to player 1. Player 1 has a dominated strategy for furniture, which means that vessels are preferred, as also jewelry is preferred. P2 understands that, so her bidding for vessels, she discards, because there is again a dominated strategy. And so we are having what is called as only F1 and D1 here, and here we are having F1 and D1 and E2 and D2. Here again it is very clear that if player chooses F1, then player 2 will again choose E2, because then because 3 is better than 0. Similarly, if player 1 chooses D1, then again player 2 will choose E2, because then she will get 4. Okay, as against 3 here. So definitely D1 will choose 2, because 2 is better than 1, and E2 will definitely choose then the player 2 will choose E2, and so this happens to be what is called as the winning strategy. So I've come to solutions in 2 methods, how Nash equilibrium is arrived at. Okay? Now here we are having again an unsymmetrical game when we are trying to make investment plans. So wherein let me speak about a very simple investment, wherein player 1 makes actually it is associated with machinery, but let me talk about either a vegetarian restaurant, or a Chinese restaurant, or perhaps let's say a common restaurant which serves everything and everything, okay, multi-cuisine. And so let's say that now player 2 is trying to bank on this, okay, or trying to use this, wherein she has 3 options, either to give the plantain leaf for serving food, or whatever, okay, some kind of serving material, or to serve chapati, or to give biryani or something like that, as a standard to shop number 1, to restaurant number 1 for serving. But then in each of these strategies, these are the benefits. So this is in an extensive manner. So player 3 gets 3, whereas player 3 gets 4 if A is opted for. But of course, the player 2 has an option, would like to opt for B, because then with one third probability, she has a chance of getting 15 value, whereas player 1 gets only 0. Okay, but of course there's only 1/3 probability which may not come true. On the other hand, 2/3 probability is for again him losing out, so he will not opt for this, because there's a possibility that he will lose out completely and player 3 gets 3. Okay, so this is again how from from a normal format of game, how extensive games can also be played. So these are the 3 strategies, and each of these there are counter moves by player 2, and for here we do not have a counter move. Still they get something like this. So when there's a counter move, there can be a move, a counter move to a counter move, and so these are the benefits that are garnered by player 1 and player 2, which is reflected here in a normal manner, and the same manner in which we try to play the normal game, we can play here also. Okay, so in fact it is actually played here. I'm not showing it, I'm showing just how we can model, and I've tried to show how it can be solved. Okay, and this is the min-max concept promoted by or put together by of course developed by John von Neumann, wherein again I have tried to show what may be called as when we code for a work. Okay, so we have the player 1 or company 1 has 3 strategies. They can retain the status quo, or they can hike the prices, or they can give discounts, okay, to get the order. Okay, similarly, so there are 3 components for the order. There is the material component, there is the labor component, there is also services component. Okay, so player 2 has another set of strategies. This is what is called as an unsymmetrical game. So it could be reducing the quality and quantity, or improve both, or retain both aspects. Okay, so we have what is called as if player 1 wins here 2, it's called as a zero-sum game, because if someone wins, the other person stands to lose. So 4 minus 4, 1 minus 4, etc. So how do they play? How is min-max game played here, or how is the solution? Okay, so now player 2 starts to pick out what are the what are the smallest minimum gains here. So he see of player 1. So player 1 has gain 2 here, gain 1 here, and gain 1 here. So he picks up the minimum and he puts it out here. And then similarly, this is the minimum gain. Minus 3 is the minimum gain of player 1 as counted by tabled by player 2, and here it is minus 2 for player 2. Minus 2 is the minimum gain of player 1 as tabled by player 2. Similarly, now player 2 accounts for the worst losses that player 2 makes. So he sees that this is minus 4, this is minus 1, and this is minus 2. So here minus 1 and 1 match, and so this is said to be the winning strategy. Okay, so that it might not make much of a sense, because I've used games that are already there to explain the both the modeling as also the way in which they are resolved or solved out. Okay, so I'll try to finish as early as is possible. If I have to stop, please ask me to stop at any point of time. Okay, this is again an incomplete information game. Because we don't know what's going to happen. There are 2 players here. Player 1 has 2 strategies. She can project either her qualification when she's applying for the job, or she can apply, or she can project her experience. Okay, but player 2 applies 3 strategies. Okay, it could be to project an issue experience she has, or to give whatever small certificates that she has, or to fake certain, or to make some fake recommendations or references, which are always rejected. Okay, so we have so she stands to lose, as can be seen here. But now, so this is removed. Okay, so once this is removed, let's look at these. Okay, so I'm talking about the human situation, human failures that we all have. Okay, which influence such games. So now we have, so this is removed because fake references and recommendations are not accepted, and this is the incomplete information part, because the job givers, the employers, are not interested in this, so they remove this, and so they look at only these aspects. And so now it can be seen that player 1 gets either 10 or 5, whatever be the strategy. It could be, if T1 is chosen, then it gets 10 and 10. If T2 is chosen, then it gets 5. Okay, whatever be the strategy of player 1. And whatever be the, okay, the player 1 gets 5. Okay, whatever player, yeah, I suppose it's understood. Player 1 gets only 5. Okay, if T2 is chosen. Okay, either if she employs S1 or S2. Now comes the unfortunate part of human minds, wherein
shall I interrupt, Professor Sudha?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
5 minutes more, we have to almost
Okay, I'll
quarter
try to
past 7.
conclude. Okay, I'll try conclude wherever it stops. Okay, please let me know. Okay, so we have what is called as
Now
yeah.
you can stop within 5 minutes.
Okay, can I stop with this?
5 minutes.
Okay, so
Five
I'll
minutes.
just show this. I just show the slides and stop. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So here I'm trying to say that the player one will opt for S1 because then player two will opt for T2 because she will get only 5, but the other player will get only 1. Okay, player will opt 2 opts for T2 because player 2 will get 1, but because she does not opt for this because if though she gets 10, the other player gets 100. And this is the unfortunate situation. So these are some of the, okay, so I'll just move on to some of the perfect, and this is perfect information game. This is imperfect information game because at every step you make a decision independently, or if you make the same steps. Okay, in fact, I want to explain today using this. I don't have time, so I'll not do that. So this is perfect information. This is imperfect information game. Then we have what is called as this is again penalty shootout. Okay, this becomes a complete information. It becomes perfect information so long as you know who the other player is going to be. This is again a very this is the game of X introduced by Nash in his college years. Which is not yet, which was talked about by the introducer. And then some of the cooperative games, property division, then people can come together to see to it that the property can be divided and people can come together. Okay, and there is what is called as a Shapley-Shubik power indices. I hope that the slide is self-explanatory, wherein the pieces of properties can be divided only if units of 6 can be carved out. Okay, so then people come together, and or 6 or more. Okay, so how do they come together and how do they share the benefits? Okay, so that's it here. This is again this is a game of quite a lot of importance, which gave a Nobel Prize for Shapley, which is actually talking in terms of how you propose to how the man proposes to the girl and how the girl accepts the proposal based on first choice, second choice, third choice, etc., and how solutions are arrived at. Okay, this is very important in several aspects, especially also in today's context of hospital assignment, okay, room assignment, internet service, etc. Okay. It is still a very relevant kind of game. This is how transformers can be charged, wherein when 2 transformers need to be charged together to give more value, and then how the solution comes about in the core space. This is what is called as the core space, wherein each of these players who are coming together to charge all the transformers, such that more people contribute to the let's say section office for as money paid for energy consumed becomes more. Okay, so benefit sharing comes into the picture here. Then we are having what is called as how this game is. Okay, then we have another kind of game wherein there are 3 construction subcontractors, wherein only one has a hidden. He has a gravel pit. This is a hidden cost, and so when they have to come together such that the gravel pit of one person can be utilized by the other companies also, such that they get the entire contract worth 36 monetary units or something like that. So, and then how this game can be utilized and how they can come together, and how the solution can be found out. Solution happens to be how the gains can be shared. Okay, so again, this is here all mathematics come into the picture. So perhaps I had better not. Okay, again, this is a game again I designed wherein we are having 3 different players. The ragging, it is set in the context of ragging, where there are victims. There is a squad who is trying to prevent who are supposed to be vigilant, and they are also what are called as the perpetrators. And how the game, okay, the game is now expressed in terms of normal form, and how each of these aspects are removed, and then how of course it has been converted into a cooperative game, and how the value comes about, okay, whether ragging is done, and if ragging is done, how and how ragging is prevented. Okay, in fact, this shows that ragging can be prevented when these people come together, when the victims and the perpetrators can come together, which is of course reasonable. Okay, so this is another two aspects that in game theory there could be collision, as was mentioned earlier. There could also be collusion, and okay, and then finally, of course, so that's, I suppose there is one more minute wherein I'll just read out this comment, that because this is the last of the okay. So I talked about collision and collusion, wherein there is a regulator, and this man is saying that we have actually set up an independent study which tells us that the humans do not contribute to global warming. Okay, so this is what is called as a conflict of interest. Okay, so the conflict of interest as we notice. Okay, so that's all, and I stop here, and I had the great opportunity to meet Robert John Orman in Israel when I visited Israel, and I'm very happy that I had used cooperative game theory in my PhD thesis, as Mohandas sir very well knows. Thank you. I hope. Okay, so I tried to mention all the C's that I mentioned, which is a part of cooperative game theory: collusion, then again coalition, communication, conversation, all kinds of interactions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was truly a wonderful session. It was really informative, and I once again thank you for the amazing talk.
Thank you.
Ma'am, we have a few queries raised by the participants. Shall we move on to them?
Yeah, sure. I'll try my best.
Thank you, ma'am. So the first question is, please explain how game theory is applied in marketing.
In market engineering?
Yes.
Okay. So in fact, I had used game theory in market engineering, especially because you can nudge people. Okay, there are two possibilities. One is, of course, competitive game theory. Okay, competitive game theory is more applicable. In fact, all through I've tried to show that you can engineer the market via advertisements. You can engineer the market via cartels. You can also have what are called as the pushing out the new entries, wherein the big fish eat the small fish. There can be what are called as out of market settlements, etc. All these form a part of game theory, and they're all engineering the market such that you win the game ultimately. Sometimes it is possible, in fact, mostly it is possible that cooperation can also come into the picture, wherein you can together provide. Okay, so you can perhaps some people provide half of it, some people provide the other half, and together you make more gains. In fact, there are quite a large number of examples in game theory literature wherein market engineering is actually done as a result of both cooperative as also competitive game theory, wherein the different pricing modules are also affected by some stances taken or by some strategies that are taken using game theory. It takes a long time to explain them, but of course, only one example. I suppose I don't think I should go into my PhD thesis, because therein I have used market engineering, wherein the prices can be manipulated. The prices can be such that the lowest price is given to the grand coalition when everyone comes together. So now people are interested in forming the coalition such that the lowest price is they have the lowest penalty. So these are different ways of either going into cooperation or going to coalitions, or competing ferociously such that the market can be engineered to your own advantage. I hope, I don't know if I've answered the question appropriately. I think my example that I used in my thesis may be a better example, wherein I have used the lowest part of the curve, wherein I have built a price curve, wherein the smallest part of the curve is actually awarded to the coalition, the grand coalition. So in this manner, the market can be engineered. Is it okay? Will it do?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. The next question is, the time of choice of this topic, that is today, is quite ideal when the issue of monsoon Mangal is very active. All are using this game theory. What are your views on this?
That's the reason why I chose this topic. In fact, Engineer Harindralal sir was very kind to ask me to select my topic, and I felt that perhaps this is not the correct venue. But then I noticed that it is a part of our everyday life. In fact, all of us play games all our life. In fact, I also wanted to give an example from this or the very same venue that we are talking that I'm talking on, wherein there are perhaps this society has received several types of talks. Like, for instance, there are pure technical talks, there are social issue talks, there are also perhaps some of which are called as, it may be irrelevant, it may be boring, like perhaps my talk is, I hope it is not. So, and then there are listeners, okay? So the more listeners that are there, the society gets the benefit of more viewers, okay, like the PR ratings, etc. But the viewers may have three different strategies, like for instance, listening intently, making notes, then of course Googling for materials and enriching themselves, as also enriching the meeting, the virtual meeting, wherein they contribute by questions, like some people are doing here. Okay? There might be another group who may be now just simply switching on, they may be doing their jobs, etc. And then at the final moment, they may be coming in. In fact, I have encountered such people also. Then they can have some questions. So some questions can be asked. Some of the questions may be useful, so the inter-society still gets some points, and the person also gets some points because he or she gets some kind of publicity. There might be another group who will be just joining and not listening at all, and then ultimately the feedback is given, and then the feedback and then, of course they get some certificates, and perhaps the talk may be so boring and it may be irrelevant, and then still the comments may be that it's very exciting, it is useful, etc. It may even be abusive, like for instance some of the news or situations that we are having these days. So it may be abusive also, but still the person who has not listened to the talk might give what is called as a good comment for that. So which means that it may be called as a 0-0 situation. Nobody gains out of it. Okay. So this is again, so in any area we can see that game theory is relevant, even for such talks that are being organized by inter-society. And let me use this opportunity to thank you for giving me a chance to speak on such a topic. Okay, whether it's of interest to you or not, I don't know.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have a final question.
Okay,
political parties, government in power, opposition party, police department, all are very experts in this game theory now with time. Poor people are simply observators, enjoying the situation well. Media also does their share. Enjoyable so long as one is not involved in it and it is a pure observer. What are your views on this, ma'am?
I feel that, okay, that's the reason why I try to be an evangelist of game theory to the extent possible. In fact, I tried to explain about game theory. In fact, I tried to give a course also wherein I use some comic strips from manga. I suppose you know about manga comics. I tried to use, in fact, there's a beautiful manga comic entirely on game theory. I thought that I'll use all those things. I'll try to keep people entertained and to know about these things, etc. But then, okay, but then the mathematics behind it, people think that there's quite a lot of mathematics, and so people are not interested. Okay, perhaps it's my way of delivery or whatever. Unfortunately, one of my colleagues took up her PhD. When she went for PhD, she took up the concept of game theory to push her case. Okay, so that's so at least there's one point in favor of me. And I believe that she dropped her PhD, so that point is also long gone now. Because my views is that people should understand, okay, when you are being duped, okay, what is the agenda behind certain moves, etc. Like especially in economic wars, in economic games, we should know that the advertisement is not actually the correct thing. In fact, if we don't have advertisements, it would be a better world because we would learn things on our own, which would be better.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And that was the end of the Q&A session. I now invite Manasa Regu to deliver the vote of thanks.
evening. Am I audible?
Yes, Manasa, you're audible.
I am Manasa from TKMIT, and it is session and a society weekly webinar series. I extend a very hearty thanks to all honorable speaker, Professor Sudhana, the Academy of Science and Technology. Thank you. I especially appreciate for being the MC of the day. Congratulations. And also, I would like to say that it was a great talk, and I think and all
Thank you, Manasa. As we have successfully reached the end of today's session, I'd like to announce the next session of the Intersociety Weekly Webinar Series. We would be having a 79th talk of the Intersociety Weekly Webinar Series on 13th October 2021, Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the topic, The Paradigm Shift in Education by Professor Anil Brahmanandan. Attendees, kindly take a note on that and register for the session. Hoping to see you all next Wednesday. On behalf of the Intersociety Weekly Webinar Series team, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us on this talk. Goodbye. The meeting is officially dispersed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sudha.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
I
you.
hope
Well done.
I had to rush towards the
An
end.
unusual topic. Okay. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if it's interesting to anyone, to many people, but then it is interesting to me. So I felt that I should, I can take up on whatever you offered and freedom to choose my topic. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving
It's
me a good
interesting, you know.
opportunity. Yeah.
Diversity.
Congratulations, Sudha.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Oh, that's KBM, sir.
Yeah, I've been
Thank you, sir.
listening.
Thank you. Thanks an immense lot. Thanks to everyone. I
Thank
think
you.
I received some good comments here. I'm very happy. I think Nitin is also listening. So thanks an immense lot. I think I will, perhaps it's time to leave. It must be.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sudha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you,
the
Dr.
opportunity. Thank you for the listening. Okay. Thanks
Yeah.
to all.
It is our pleasure. Thank you very much. Once
Thank you,
again,
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Angela, you can close it.
Yes, sir.